it's patience and energy. I think when you are patient with the process and you're using your energy effectively, and being present, like those three things, being patient and being present to me is kind of the same thing. So being present with your energy, man. Like, have you ever been successful at something when you've had no energy and you're not present to it? No. So to me, it's just being present and utilizing the energy that you have.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I'm your host and coach, Tyler Johnson. If you are a return listener, we would love your ratings and reviews. And whether you've tuned in today to elevate your mindset, your game, or just your day, you are in the right place. My guest this episode is the host of the 90% Mental Podcast, the author of the Next One Up Mindset book. He is also a consultant, a coach, and keynote speaker. Welcome to the Elev8 Podcast, Grant Parr. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great, man. I'm getting the morning going, starting with you. So I'm looking forward to this, man.
Excellent. As am I. First off, what got you into the field of mental performance? How did you evolve into being a coach working with top companies, NBA superstars, and what was your path to kind of get there?
You know, it started from a career-ending injury. Actually, it took me about 2 decades to kind of get through that injury, and then it led me to get into mental performance and going back to school to getting my master's in sports psychology. But there was a moment where I was driving between sales calls when I was, finally ready to like kind of redefine Grant. And I was listening to Desmond Howard on ESPN talking about sports psychologists. And I was like, what is that? And so I went home and did tons of research, and then realized like it's a real thing. And within 2 months, I was at JFK University, enrolled in sports psychology for my master's, and then here I am.
Rock on. You mentioned that kind of injury, which kind of leads into the next question. You're an athlete, you're a football player, and I know the career was kind of cut short due to injury. Can you talk a little bit more about what that process is, and just so many student athletes end up battling injuries at some point, and it really is a test to sometimes, or an open door to learn more about the mental game. Can you talk about the process for you?
Yeah, I'll give you the cliff notes because it was like 2 decades I had to deal with that injury, and it was I hurt my left hip in junior college. I was playing football for Chabot Junior College in Hayward, California. And I played through it, and I played through it the following year at Sonoma State. And then, after 13 years of football, my body was just breaking down. Not only was my hip affected, my right shoulder, after playing all those years of baseball and football and, throwing, I was a quarterback. So it just got to a point my last year, I was like, I made that call to quit and to move on, but I really didn't do that. My body did. And that was what got me really, really frustrated for 17, 18 years, because I didn't have a chance to walk away from the sport I love. Someone else made a decision. That was my body. And so I was frustrated, and I didn't do any emotional internal work until after my second surgery, before my second surgery. So I was about 35 when that happened, or actually, no, I was 37. Okay. So that was when it took me that long to get the lessons and to let go of all that baggage. And that transition is a real thing. And everybody that plays a sport, you're going to transition. You're going to, it doesn't matter. You're going to transition out of that sport. And if you play it for a long time, and if you don't do the right things, that transition sucks. So there's a lesson of transition. There's a lesson of doing emotional work. And when you're hurt, I don't care if you're hurt for a season, you're hurt for a career-ending injury, you have emotional wounds. You just do.
Yeah.
You're human. So It's about taking care of those emotional wounds.
some of those wounds, I know from my own experience, you start to ask yourself questions maybe you didn't when you were healthy.
Right.
Thoughts maybe sometimes fall into different categories, and maybe you question yourself more than you did as a confident athlete. Can you talk about maybe just some simple mental skills athletes facing kind of maybe a first injury that's keeping them away from their sport, their teammates, sometimes isolated in a training room and away from those people? But can you talk a little bit about those dynamics and how mental skills can kind of help us work through some of those challenges?
Yeah. I think there's a few things that happen, that happens when you're injured. I think you have to accept it, because if you're in denial and you're pushing away this injury, you have to accept it, that you are hurt, but you got to trust it too. You got to trust your work, and you got to trust that things are going to come back. And I also think especially when you're injured and you're by yourself and you're away from the team, or you're doing your work by yourself, a lot of things can happen. A lot of traffic happens between your two ears.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things that I can dive deep into, but I think just on the surface level, just for your listeners, just know that you are not your thoughts, because you're not. You can't control your thoughts, but you can control how you respond to them. And that's the key part. So responding to that negativity or whatever those feelings are coming up when you're injured. So that helped me, and that helps my clients. But I would also say, like, if there's a technique that's going to help you get confidence, because that's what we're dealing with. When we're injured, we want to make sure that we feel confident with our body, we feel confident with our emotions and our mind, and everything's aligned. So then when we're playing our sport, we don't have to think about that injury anymore. So visualization is, like, to me, it's one of the best skills to start seeing yourself being powerful, being smooth, being confident, and seeing yourself doing these things, so you don't have to think about that injury. And also watching highlight film from when you were dominating, so you can start seeing your body being confident again.
Yeah, I like the don't forget what you're capable of when you see those highlights, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
is there a mental skill currently that you just enjoy teaching? One right now, or that jumps out? Maybe it's what is it for you that you feel right now, like, I just love helping people understand and put this into their lives?
Yeah, man, that's a good question, because there's a few of them. But I think the one that I love the most, and actually I learned it from our friend Grant Parr, and he might have shared this with you on your show when he was on before, but it's called an MVP. So meditation, visualization, and powerful self-talk. And so there's so many different ways to meditate, but this actually, you're taking 3 skills and you're combining them in one. And these are the skills that you can control. So getting back into control, you're controlling your meditation, you're controlling your visualization, you're controlling your self-talk. So it's basically a skill where I get you in a meditative state. I work your energy down or up, and then I start having you seeing your success, seeing what you want to do. And we have a discussion before we get into the MVP of what you want to achieve in this session. And then I start throwing words I want you to say. And when I say that, I want you to, like, literally mentally say these powerful affirmations. And then I work down your energy, or work it up, and then I bring you out of it. But that whole MVP gets you really locked in, gets you seeing what you want to do, and then hearing that language, which is crucial. Yeah. So that's one of my favorites.
Love it. On kind of an alternative side, what mental skill do you see athletes most often overlooking?
So there's a few, but it's really interesting. I'll give you some backstory. When I first got into this profession, I was always preaching that the basis of this work of mental skills training and mindfulness training is breath. And it is, don't get me wrong, but what fuels breath? Your energy. So I think more often than not, like, even when I was in school learning sports psychology, like, we weren't talking about energy management. We might have scratched the surface, but there was no protocol. There was no framework. And so I think that's one thing that we don't really work with, is because just picture yourself playing your sport with no energy. it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, right. So I think for me, it's really getting like that energy, understanding the energy you do have, not the energy you don't have. And then what are the things you can do to enhance your energy? Because maybe your energy is good. You don't need to do anything with it, but there are things you can do in the moment to take you from, I like to have a scale to 1 to 5. 1's low, 5's high. So if you're like a 3, what can you do to get to a 4 right before you perform?
Yeah.
Right. Or if you're a 5 and you're rocking too high, but you need to come down, you need downshift. What are some of the things you can do? So I think energy management is a topic, an area, a skill that we probably need to focus a little bit more on.
Yeah, I'm always loved it, fascinated by it. Working with football players a lot, there's positions that seem to sometimes require different energies. Whether you're a quarterback, kicker, middle linebacker, D tackle, and I think that's where breathing can all help everybody in their own positions. But there is an energy demand. Sometimes that is, where's my body? Where's my mind? What do I need to do? So I love that focus of kind of the energy versus some of these other things that brings a little more tangibility to, like you said, imagine yourself playing with no energy.
Yeah, exactly.
I already don't want to do it again. Right.
And if you think about it, if you throw another thing that I think we're as a society, we're kind of talking more about vulnerability and the power and the research behind it. But I think we don't talk about it enough, especially when you think about the game of football. Because it's really interesting when you think about vulnerability, we think about our emotions and our feelings, right? And our communication. Totally get it. But also there's another side of vulnerability with our performance showing up. Like when you haven't been, like maybe you've blown 3 assignments in a row, how are you going to be on the 4th play? Are you going to really show up, or are you going to get inside your head and play it safe? So that there's a few different sides of vulnerability. So I think that's another area that we could probably address.
No doubt. It opens the door to a lot of lessons, I think, just being vulnerable.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
To me leads to credibility and authenticity, not quickly, but
right. Exactly.
But as coaches and teammates, there's a lot we can learn and grow from there. Speaking of teammates, how can teams create trusting, cohesive environments? We talked about different energies. We've got different personalities, different people. Yeah. What are some kind of common denominators you find in building trusting environments in teams?
There's so many different ways to achieve this. And we'll go back to energy, because when you think about energy, like we're all made out of energy. And so when we play a sport, especially a team sport, we need to connect. So the more we're connected, emotionally, spiritually, physically, from a language perspective, then the whole program itself is more connected. And so how do we actually get more cohesive with energy? Well, when you think about the 1950s Boston Celtics and the 1980s and 90s Lakers, they actually did research and they found out that one of the reasons why they had such a legacy is because they touched each other, meaning high-fiving, arms around each other. And that was like not only in games, that was in practice, that was off the court. So there was constant touching. So when you think about that, like not in a weird way, but in a way of being a human and being authentic, touching someone, you're allowing your energy and their energy to connect.
Yeah.
So if you really want to trust somebody, man, just start touching them or high-fiving, like get close to them, like bump shoulders, whatever it is. But not only do that, but start your practices and your games where everyone is touching or connecting their breath, like connecting that energy. Doing something that they're constantly connecting with their energy, because there's going to be a time where they need to count on that energy. So that cohesiveness is going to be really tight. It's going to be really strong.
I like that. Start together, end together.
Yeah.
Because, I like the force that creates.
For sure.
We mentioned Graham, a mutual friend we know. I shared after his episode some of the music that you guys put out and some of this MVP, philosophy. And if you want to hear some of that, I think it's Graham's on episode 45, and some of the music and stuff. I think there's about 20 minutes of it in episode 46. Talk a little bit more about why you guys kind of did that. It's different than sitting on a pillow in a quiet room with candles, which a lot of people might envision when you talk about meditation and
Right.
things. But I've, shared it with an athlete or two. I've put it on in the gym when I just have, hey, I need something to go. It's this morning. Talk a little bit more maybe about why the music, why the process, and kind of maybe what you're seeing your athletes take from it.
Yeah. So it's actually really exciting right now. When you do new projects, and there's the energy behind it, it's all new and shiny and everything's awesome right now. But working with Graham is not only my mentor, but he's a great friend. And so for months, we would do these like monthly check-ins, and, I've been working with him or working under him for about 5 or 6 years. And he had no clue I had this musical background. Like, so when I left the game of football, like I had to do something with my energy. So I taught myself playing guitar and bass and piano and sing a little bit. So I was getting into music, and then I got away from music to get into sports psych. So I started really dedicating my life to this work. And so I just kind of pulled away from the music. But with the pandemic, I had a little more time on my hands.
Yeah.
So I started connecting, as you can see my bass behind me, I started playing that a lot more. And I'm like, wow, and the bass was cool because it's 4 strings. So I'm like, I want to simplify my life. I don't want to spend all my time on a guitar with 6 strings. So I started just playing around with music more. And him and I had a call, and I started telling him man, my creativity is back. And not only do I feel like my creativity is being exercised, I'm feeling different with my clients. I'm feeling like I'm thinking differently because I'm tapping into this energy of being creative. And so he was like, whoa, man, I had no clue. And I knew he did an album a couple of years before our conversation. So he's like, hey man, let's do something. And so then it was just really interesting, man. If anybody knows Graham, his energy is just on fire. And we spent one day in his garage working on some beats. And then he literally, we spent 2 hours mapping out 4 albums with a concept. And it was when he started going there, I was like, I think we got something. And then I've been going to his house for the last year, twice a week, and just making songs. And it's just been a really cool thing because it's not just about writing music, meditation music, motivational music. I'm learning, because I'm seeing firsthand one of the best in the business make up these motivational meditation scripts on the go. He doesn't write anything out. He just makes it up as he goes. But we have our process, as you were asking earlier. Our process is actually, we think of a theme, like a title of the song, and then we talk about all these, what does it mean? What does it mean to be devoted? So we have a song called Devotion. So we start talking about key words and emotions and what comes up, and how does devotion help you, excel in life. And so we have this brainstorming, we hit the ball back and forth. And then once he feels enough that he can play within his head, he goes, all right, go, let's go. And he you can tell. And right when he says go, we do a quick little spiritual prayer of just bringing in all the energy for him to let it go. And I just push record, and I just sit back and I go through the meditation with him as he's going. So it's pretty cool. And then, so that we just been working that process for the last year, and we're getting a lot of great feedback. A lot of athletes are loving it. A lot of corporate athletes are loving it. And it's so cool that we just finished our first album, which is called Reflect. So it's all about reflecting and being introspective and learning about yourself from the inside out. Now it's about taking all that information that you reflect from and then responding. So now we have the next album is going to be it's more of an upbeat, motivational kind of war music, when you're going to go to battle. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So that's our next album, is Respond.
Nice. Well, we will have some links connect to the podcast for Grant's website, as well as some of the music and things that you can find that they've got out. One of the questions we love to ask our guests, a lot of different answers, but always insightful. How do you define success?
Oh man, I love this word. I really do love this word because you and I both know what success is, but we all have a different meaning of it. Yeah. We all do, right? Yeah. So I think for me, it is it's patience and energy. I think when when you are patient with the process and you're using your energy effectively, and being present, like those three things, being patient and being present to me is kind of the same thing. So being present with your energy, man, like, have you ever been successful at something when you've had no energy and you're not present to it? No. So to me, it's just being present and utilizing the energy that you have.